Welcome to Rags to Riches, the Ironman gear progression tailored specifically to completing the Chambers of Xerics challenge mode raid solo. From the scuffed early game Ironman gear to the endgame best in slot items, we will be recreating our gear progression by changing and upgrading gear between each raid that we complete. You don't need a twisted bow to begin doing challenge mode raids, but it certainly is a lot more fun when you do have one. Welcome back to another episode of Rags to Riches. We're now on episode 9, and this is a big one. Timeline-wise, we are now sometime in July 2024, or mid-2024s, a couple of months lumped together here in terms of progression. In the middle of July, we had a big pull. We pulled the Tumikin's Shadow. Our Ironman officially has its hands on the first mega rare of the account. And ironically enough, it is the newest raid of the three, the Tombs of a Masket, the Tumikin's Shadow, and obviously I've told this story before, but I really wanted the Twisted Bow as my first ever mega rare on the account. That was one of my main goals of playing Ironman, because before Ironman mode, I spent a lot of time doing regular solo chambers. And I was like, you know what? It'd be very sick to pull a Twisted Bow on an Ironman. So that's the reason why I went so hard on chambers and specifically challenge modes. I just fell in love with challenge modes and I really wanted a Twisted Bow. But ironically, after doing hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of chambers, I never got my hands on the Twisted Bow first. And I kind of burnt out and moved on to the Tombs of a Masket. And I pulled the Tumikin's Shadow as my 25th TOA purple. So it wasn't like I got particularly lucky on that mega rare either. One purple over the 1 in 24 rate. Nevertheless, having the Tumikin's Shadow for Chambers of Xerics is very powerful. But that's not the only upgrade we got. We got the Xerite crossbow. Sometime in mid-July, we got an ACB. And then we also pulled a Nihil Horn at Nex. In 2024, we were doing a lot of Nex with clanmates. We all were Ironmen in need of Torva, in need of the ZCB, the Xera Van races, and all that good stuff. And doing Nex was like a serious case of FOMO. You know, if other people were doing it, I feel like I had to get to do it myself as well. Anyways, we got the ZCB, we got the Shadow. Let's get into it. Oh, one more thing, actually. The Elder Maw, at this point, now officially had a spec bar. So it's a direct upgrade over the Dragon Warhammer. So we will be using that in our run here today as well. Without any more yapping, let's get into the raid. Let's pre-pot. Using a chugging barrel here, but obviously that wasn't available back then. Just a little quality of life thing we have available these days. Now, if you've been following along the series, you'll know that I've made a few exceptions in my setup. It's not a direct one-to-one recreation, but we did it to the best of our abilities just because we're an Ironman and we don't quite have all the items we used to. So, for example, we're using the Avernic Treads, whereas during this era, obviously that didn't exist, and we were using Primordial Boots, which we no longer have on the account. Likewise, we have the Blood Moon Tassets. We're going to pretend like those are the Bandos Tassets. Offensive stats-wise, I believe they're the same. In fact, the Blood Moons put me at a slight disadvantage because of lesser defensive stats, I believe. Also, you know, I didn't have a Fang Kit, although after pulling the Shadow, I did go for the Fang Kit pretty shortly afterwards, I believe. And also, I'm using an Ultra Ring. We're going to pretend like that's a Berserker Ring. And obviously, you know, I mentioned the Fang Kit just now. Same thing with the Blorva helmet. That was just a regular Torva helmet. Which, you know, in this specific gear setup, it fits quite well. The Blorva helmet, the Bandos chestplate, and the Blood Moon. I don't know. I like this look. But at the time, wearing full Bandos with a regular Torva helm, I gotta tell you, that look is pretty goofy. The helmet just did not look right at all. Anyways, that is Tekton complete. We're going to grab the overload and enhance. We did bring an angler in with us, just so we're a little bit healthier after we overload right there. In the crab room we go. We're going to do it the exact same way that we always do in any solo run, regardless of gear. Range first, and then smash these crabs into place for the mage crystal. There we go. Now we get the luxury of wasting shadow charges just to do crab room. We're going to smash this into place. Very conveniently enough, we have another crab lurking over here where I need it to be for the final crystal. Crab room complete. And just like any other raid, we are going to be scavenging, although with our inventory situation right now, we're going to have to drop some potions first. Let's restore our run energy. We're going to run past the scav for right now. We're going to have to drop the overload, enhance, and even a stamina real quick. And then let's begin scavenging. We now have 3 inventory spaces, just enough room for juice, shrooms, as well as the planks. Which, fortunately enough, we just got everything we need on that first KC right there. Scavenging these days is much better than it was in the past. I don't know the specifics, but they definitely made scavenging better. You're more likely to get the items you need and in bigger bunches. Anyways, here at Ice Demon, another big change with the Tumican Shadow. We are going to be using said Tumican Shadow on Ice Demon. We're not going to be bofoing it, and we're not going to be doing that melee method with the Fang that we have been in previous runs. So we're going to be chopping here, get our potions back, get a tinderbox. Now, full transparency, this episode 9 here, this is not the first run through. I did a previous recording just now, but it went pretty south. It went pretty wrong, and not just in like a few minor ways to where it's like, oh, you know, yeah, we made a few mistakes here and there. It is what it is, but I genuinely started getting a little frustrated with that run, and by the time I finished it, well, actually, correction, I didn't even finish it. I literally left in the middle of Olm. Yeah, I was just quite tilted with it. Wasn't happy with it at all. We didn't even complete the run, so here we are again, and everything about this run so far is going much smoother, from the actual gameplay to the commentary right now. We're a bit more organized, which is probably for the best. Anyways, we've got 2 inventories put into the braziers already. On this third one, we're just going to chop as much as we can. And what we need to do right now, actually, is put these potions towards the bottom of our inventory. So that way, when we withdraw everything else, our inventory stays the same. So into private storage we go, withdraw all, and there's a lot of things we can actually get rid of here. Don't need the Fang, pickaxe, lance, dragon hunter crossbow, stamina pots, or the defender. Good elder maul spec. Just once actually, because now that we have the ZCB, we're going to want to save some spec for one of the shamans. Now this is going to be the shadow method we're doing here. It actually saves a bit of prayer, as we don't need to have an overhead on. We just have augury camped right now, and we're not burning run energy either. Right now, during this run, I actually am also live streaming, so yeah, what's going on? Grass is greener. How you doing? So not only is the shadow method much better than the melee method with the Fang we've been doing in all our runs, but It is also much lower intensity. I don't have to be clicking every single tick. I appreciate the Twitch follow. Our enhance ran out, so let's reset that. Our overload's going to run out shortly as well. Okay, just as we finish Ice Demon, our overload runs out. Perfect timing, actually. We're going to re-overload 4 Shamans here and equip our ZCB, which we're going to put on long range. Just so that we get dragged out. And interestingly enough, despite the Shadow being a mega rare item, if I'm not mistaken, for this room specifically, Shamans, the Bofa setup is still better DPS than the Shadow. At least for its time in mid-2024 with these setups, it was. I don't know if the Avernic Treads and some of the, other changes and whatnot changes that, but I know for a fact it definitely was better during its time. So whether or not it's actually better these days, I'm just going to use the Bofa here just to be accurate to how it was, how we were doing the raids back then. I ate a bomb there, and we're now 14 health, so a little scary right now. You just got into OSRS Ironman. Hope you're enjoying it so far. It's the early mid game is definitely very, very addicting, honestly. Okay, we're 6 health right now. It's a little scary. Here I am reading Twitch chat on 6 health. Okay. Shaman room complete. We're gonna pick up the Buchus. Heading into the prep room now. We managed to not plank, so very nice. We're going to be prepping the same way we have done in all our previous raids. So right here, we're going to plant in both patches, just in case one breaks early. Despite having 99 farming, that can still happen. I'm going to put our pots and spade in shared, deposit everything else into private, take the spade back out, take out 13 juice and 8 mushrooms. So that's 3 inventory spaces taken by those things, fill our inventory with vials, then drop 4 of them. This way we have exactly 21 vials for the 21 brews and restores we're going to be making. Once those vials are filled with water, deposit 10 into shared. And then we're going to be picking up 8 Buchus for our 8 revitalizations. There we go. We have 8 Buchus. We're going to make the restores now. Played mostly RS3, then took a break, and now decided I'd do an OSRS Ironman. I never played RS3, so I can't really speak on that. But I heard they're doing a leagues right now. Okay, so we take out the 10 vials we previously put away. We got 13 vials in our inventory now, and we have precisely 13 inventory spaces for the Buchus, so it all works out. $13 Buchu now acquired. And the patch broke on the very last one. Okay, good timing. I'm going to make up brews as we make our way into the next room. There we go. Chuck those into shared. And then we're going to need all our mage gear, all our melee gear, but with the fang, rune pouch and thrall book. Oh, and our ZCB, let's not forget that. Overload enhance, 1 prayer pot, or like restore I mean, and 2 brews. During these Rags to Riches videos, it's kind of difficult whenever I get to the private storage and withdrawing items and whatnot. Because, for every video, we're actually running an entirely different and unique setup. I mean, sometimes it's just one little change. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 items. But The thing about CMs and the way I've run CMs is I've always ran them in a very particular way, a consistent way that's just easily repeatable, and then eventually it becomes muscle memory. But when things change like this from a raid to raid basis, it just confuses me, and sometimes I take much longer than usual at the chest there. And honestly, that's a huge part of CMs in general, solos or teams. It's really the inventory management. It's a huge aspect of doing CMs, honestly. So here at Vanguards, you'll notice that I'm using the shadow on both the meleeer and the major, actually. And that's because the shadow is actually better DPS than the Bofa setup. So aside from using the ZCB to open up the Vanguards room here, the range setup is really not necessary. Now, if we had a twisted bow, that's a different story, but at this point in time, we don't have one yet. It just goes to show you just how powerful the Tumakin Shadow is. And on that topic, after the next room, which is Thieving, I mean, not much to say about Thieving room, is Vespula, and we're going to be using the Shadow for Vespula as well. We're going to go ahead and drop the Overload and Enhance now, as we'll get a fresh new set from Vanguards once we're done. Fortunately, DPS in the last couple of rotations here has been kind of pitiful. There we go. We're going to Fang Spec to finish this one off. No, it digs and doesn't allow us. That's quite unfortunate. Whenever they dig, it really just adds quite a bit of time into this room. So yeah, we got an Overload and Enhance once again. We're going to pick up all the brews and restores. And I'm actually going to sip this Enhance so it lasts throughout this room and Vespula. And drop it so we make room to pick up these grubs. Obviously, this is a relatively new change. Just like in Ice Demon, the Kindling is stackable in your inventory. Here at Thieving, it is also stackable. But this was not always the case. Before, it was very important to clear your inventory. You run right to the chest here, put away your pots, and even your gear, actually. And that's because back then, run energy was a huge factor. These days, managing run energy is like an afterthought, honestly, and stamina pots are not as relevant. Obviously, stamina pots are still relevant in the Olm fight, but in all honesty, if you have the right gear setup and you can get through the runes quick enough, run energy is not a problem to get through the rooms. Not even Vespula. Now, if I was still in the Bofa setup for Vespula, I definitely would need the stamina, I think, especially if I'm on the more unlucky side. But we're going to be shadowing Vespula, and in just a second here, you're going to see how strong the shadow is for Vespula. Okay, so we're going to make some weird adjustments here. We're going to drop the Crystal Helm. And then we're going to, obviously, as per usual, we're going to take the pickaxe. We're going to take the stamina. But I say it's unusual in dropping the Crystal Helm because later on floor 3, we're really going to need the inventory space for brews. The thing about this setup and during this era, truthfully, I did plank a few times in this setup because I was really trying to figure out my inventory situation for floor 3. Because I'm carrying so much gear now, I have less room for brews. So in previous runs when we were relying on the Bofa to do Vespula, we packed our inventory with brews and restores. We'd probably have like at least 5 restores in our inventory. But with the mage setup, you can see we're just one restore in now. And I mean, we're more than halfway done with Vespula. We're just about done. Although these last few hits, a little unlucky. That should do the trick right there. We're going to drop this overload just because we're going to get a new one. We can just spam click the floor, pick up everything there. The overload's actually about to run out, so a little unfortunate timing. As we're going to have to overload again, even though we just chugged brews, but that's okay. We're going to grab another brew, and we're also going to put away that restore just because we don't need it right now, and in case the rare chance that we don't take that much damage, we have the inventory space to pick up the crystal when we cross the rope. I've made a mistake here, and I tagged both majors, so we're just going to run out and reset the aggro. So we're going to be using the shadow in this room. I mentioned earlier that the only exception was Shamans, where the Bofo was better than the shadow. But I do believe the shadow is better in every other room. With the exception of Vasa. Obviously, you have to range Vasa. Okay, let's get our Thrall summoned here. I kind of forgot in the first couple of seconds there. So with the shadow, it being 5 tick, I am stepping back purposely so that we can trade 1-to-1 hits with the NPCs in here. Likewise with the rangers. Okay, my inventory is looking a little funky here. Let's fix some things. There we go. The rangers hit like a truck, particularly now that we're in a mage setup, which is just absolutely made of paper defensively. We're gonna want to switch into some better range defense in between our hits. That was actually a chance there. I got a little distracted reading the clan chat. Someone just said Vardorvis is bugged. They're just talking about the loot table. Those Desert Treasure 2 bosses, they do have the occasional troll drops in their drop table. Okay, we are done with Tightrope. I'm gonna swap into our melee gear here with the pickaxe equipped. And what we're going to do here, so we already dropped the crystal helm. We're also going to sip the stamina and bank that. And we're going to fill our inventory out with brews. So I touched on this earlier already about my struggles on floor 3 and how I did plank a fair bit during this era with this setup. And that's because of the lack of inventory space. If I brought the crystal helm and kept the stamina pot on me, that's 2 less brews in my inventory. That would be about 5 brews. You do get some back from Vasa, but it's not like I have the space to pick up those brews in that case. And Muttadile room in particular could be quite rude. And oftentimes I would run out of supplies at Muttadile and unfortunately planked there. It was definitely a struggle. So a compromise of sorts I made is Vasa might take a little bit longer now because I don't have the crystal helm. The stamina, honestly, again, this was before run energy changes. It was quite important that I sipped the stamina and then banked it so that I could get through Guardians and Vasa. These days, you know, I might not need the stamina dose at all, to be honest. But keep in mind, back then, there was the run energy management, as well as Vasa just being a bit more tanky than it is now. Vasa has less defense now than it did before. So as soon as we're done with Gardens here, what I am going to do is I'm actually going to sip a brew dose here. And then I'm going to purposely overload again. Even though I have 30 seconds left. We're not going to be going for the Vasa teleport skip here. That's a relatively new thing. We did not know about this beforehand. But we're low health, it doesn't matter because we eat the teleport anyways. We eat afterwards. We're going to swap into our range gear here with the ZCB. And then the Bofa. Oh, let's equip our Torva helm. That's actually pretty significant DPS difference there. So we gotta make sure we have that on. And then while we're ranging here, since we lack the crystal helm, we put on our ancestral hat instead of the Torva helm. It's just a little less range reduction if I have the ancestral hat on rather than the Torva helm. So this Vasa is actually going pretty well so far in terms of our DPS, despite the loss of the crystal helm. But let me tell you, back in the day, like I mentioned with the Vasa having more defense and the run area changes, I'd be experiencing multiple teleports every single time. Like on average, probably at minimum 2 teleports to deal with Vasa. But here we are, we didn't get a teleport, except for the initial one. So right here, we're going to sip this enhance, pick up the overload and bruise right there. This enhance should carry us through Mystics and Muttadile, and then we'll get a new one from Muttadile. We may have made a mistake here because I'm noticing I only have the 2-dose restore in my inventory. Not quite sure what happened there. Perhaps I only brought 1 down. Typically I would have 2, and at this stage I'd probably have like 1 full one and like a 2-doser. But I suppose since we only have a 2-doser, I'm going to do a little flicking here, at least with the offensive praise. As I mentioned earlier, this is a re-recording. This is a second run-through with this iteration of gear, as we were quite frustrated on the first one. But hey, even on the second one, we're still making some mistakes. We're getting absolutely slapped right now by these guys. I'm gonna run through. Don't Mike Tyson me, please. I do need you guys to follow me, though. Okay. Very nice. I'm gonna summon a thrall. But yes, I do want to really reiterate that one of the biggest challenges, which I didn't even really consider at the start of the series, is that the ever-changing gear from raid to raid would throw me off this much. And then just how crucial muscle memory would be for like where I'm clicking to withdraw items, even to the actual methods at Olm 4-1ing and 3-0 versus the scythe methods and the shadow methods. And then combine all that with me talking through the raids, because, you know, if I wasn't recording, I'd quite simply sit here in silence, maybe listening to some music at most, and doing the raid, so like all my focus is there. But when I'm trying to speak and do the raid and I'm not used to the things I'm looking at in my inventory, it's a whole different story. Okay, we're gonna put on some tank gear here. Tanky-ish. Another unfortunate thing that I overlooked right now is that my overload's about to expire in 10 seconds. That's going to be good in the sense that it will heal me if I'm low. So right here, I just took a 20, that overload, another 30. That's going to put me right back up to 94. But here I am, I'm going to have to re-overload in the middle of Muttadile room, and I could get comboed out. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm going to preemptively brew a few times here, just to keep our health high. But that is the tree down, and what we're going to do here, we're shadowing the Muttadile. Whereas before, we would be in our melee gear here, and with Dragon Claws, DPSing this down. But with this setup, we shadow the baby. And then for our spec, we have our ZCB. That unfortunately misses. Okay, despite only having 2 restore doses after Vasa, just with a little management, it looks like we're going to be okay right now. I'm going to use the last dose there. This is going to be close, especially if we continue to not do any damage with our Bofa. Yeah, unfortunately the damage here is quite pitiful. Damage-wise, we are missing, I think the number is 2.5% damage from not having the Crystal Helm on, but I'm not too sure on how much it affects our accuracy. But we're definitely missing out on 2.5% damage. Okay, we've made it through though, although that was kind of close. Kind of sketchy. We had just 3 brew doses left. Okay, well that's all the rooms before Olm completed. Let's switch into our melee gear. And actually, we're going to do some reorganizing here because we don't want our range gear at the top. We actually want our mage gear at the top. There we go. Okay, we're going to drop this brew and restore for pre-potting purposes. Open up shared, put those away for now. We're not going to be bringing the Bofa into the raid. We're leaving the Crystal Helm in there. Elder Maw and Lance, we're going to equip the Lance right now so that we remember to put away our Fang and not accidentally bring that into the Olm fight. That would be bad. Bronze Axe into Private. Oh, and another adjustment we're making, we're binning the Blood Moon Tacits in favor of more inventory space. There we go. Inventory's looking real goofy, as I mentioned, you know, with these changes, everything's kind of not where I'm used to it being at. But back then, you know, I did do enough raids to where I know how to organize this quicker, but for me right now, this is looking real weird. So let's try to sort this out. Yeah, we'll just go with that. I don't know. Okay, let's... The point is, we have everything we need, though, but things are just looking real weird in my inventory to me. But let's brew up. Actually gonna need another brew. Okay. In we go. Surely we did not forget anything. With this setup now with the Elder Maw, when I enter, I actually do need to drop a brew on the ground just so I can actually have space to equip the Elder Maw. And then with the Shadow, there's a huge difference in how we fight Olm. So right now on this side, we are doing the 8-1 method. And then on P2, we're going to be doing another method, which is the 12-0 method. So with the Two Minion Shadow, which method you do is dependent on which side Olm comes up on. It's random, it's 50-50 whether it comes up on the west side or the east side. But which side it comes up on is going to affect which strategy, which method you employ. And it is unfortunate that on one of the sides, you do end up taking damage. You have to tank a hit. But I suppose the trade-off is that you can see right there, we're already done with the mage hand. The shadow absolutely nukes the mage hand, so it's very quick anyways. You're not going to be taking much damage. Okay, we have very quickly got into the 4-to-1 cycle. Nothing new there. We're still using the Dragon Hunter Lance, just as we have done in the previous 8 episodes of Rags to Riches here. No melee weapon upgrade just yet. But going back to what I was saying about the inventory and gear setups, here during this recording of the series, from raid to raid, we are changing our setup, whether that's one item, 2 items, 3 items, whatever. We are changing the setup constantly from raid to raid. Whereas obviously when we were progressing our Ironman, we would be doing hundreds of raids before we got an upgrade. So we would have a lot of time to get used to our new setup. But having a different setup for every raid we do, I swear I'm just going cross-eyed whenever I open up the private storage. Okay, that was P1 complete, nice and clean. I say nice and clean as I proceed to eat a crystal right there. So item-wise, this is definitely everything we had. Okay, I just see right there, I just defaulted in trying to 3-0 because just in our previous run, we were using a trident in 3-0ing. So here on this side, we get to do the 12-0 method. If we are doing this correctly, we should be taking 0 damage, but it took a little bit for us to get into cycle there. Because again, my brain just defaulted into running 3-0 with the trident. So while we brought the Blood Moon Tacits in for the entire raid, we did put it away just so we had more inventory space for Olm here. And that's mostly, the main reason is because we want to keep our 5 brew to restore ratio as we've used in all our Olm fights. But also, during this time it was very crucial that I had 2 stamina pots, like a full dose, like a 4-dose one, and then whatever else I had remaining that was left over from getting through the rooms itself. These days with the run energy changes, I believe I could just pre-pot that stamina and then bring the 4-doser in, and that would get me through Olm pretty comfortably. But I suppose in the name of like truly recreating to the best of our abilities how we were doing the raid back then, we just we'll just bring both stamina pots anyways. So right there it autoed us twice and the floor crystal came out, so I think we're gonna 3-1 there, and then oh, I messed up. And then 1-0. Actually don't quite remember what happened in this situation. Oh well, we're in cycle actually, so I guess that works out. That was very unfortunate. We just sipped a restore dose there, and then it threw a prayer drain mechanic at me. In order to mitigate that, usually I only sip a restore if I'm 10 prayer or below. Which I was right there, so that was just unfortunate. Okay, we're on to P3 already. You can see that compared to previous runs. The shadow is honestly making a huge difference. Okay, I misclicked on the enhance there. So that was unfortunate. I meant to click the restore. Oh, we are messing up here. So with the shadow method, it's very crucial that you have your attack styles, combat options tab binded to your F keys, because you are going to have to flip-flop between accurate and long range depending on which part of the cycle you're on. And as I'm talking here on P3, I have to be careful not to reset the hands. The shadow is very, very powerful. I believe in this exact setup, I have 72 as a max hit. I think. It would be good to know the exact number. But I simply don't really know at this point, to be honest. We're going to pick up this brew while we can. And let's get into cycle here. Got some specials coming out, so we're not in cycle just yet. We do have 100% spec here, so we could go for a second mall. But I would rather stay in cycle here. Even though we're not in cycle right now, but we do have the ability to get into cycle. And we're just about done anyways. Oh, that was actually very poor timing right there. Oh, very poor timing. Because we need to finish the hand over here. Okay, we're looking a little goofy trying to start the range 4-1. The mechanics are just piling on us right now. Oh, and I didn't hit. Okay. Let's get situated here. 4-1 head phase. Oh man, I gotta do a better job avoiding these crystals right now. Okay, I was just about to complain about the lack of ruby procs, but we get one right there. Very nice. At a certain point, though, obviously we're not going to want any more. Quite low on supplies here. 1 brew dose, 1 revit, but the overload is going to expire in a second here. Not the burn. Olm just has 80 health left. Okay, we are going to sip the brew here because we were in chance range. Very humble 0 on prey, though. And Olm down. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but in the previous episode, we did get a purple. So, unfortunately, no back-to-back. Now, what that purple might be, you're just going to have to make sure you tune into episode 8 if you haven't already. But let me just tell you, it's quite fitting because of a certain gear upgrade we had available for this run. Anyways, that is episode 9. We got a 40-37, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, a pretty significant time upgrade compared to our previous runs. Now, the time it takes for us to do these runs is not going to be entirely accurate to how it was back then for a few reasons. One, the raid is just naturally quicker now with the changes they've made over the years to the raid. And two, I touched on this earlier, but the constant changing of my setup from raid to raid is really throwing me off, and half the time I feel like I'm going cross-eyed dealing with my inventory as well as the private storage. But anyways, let's take a look at our loot. Unfortunately, no purple, but we get mahogany planks and uncut diamonds. 833k.